Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to the lore behind Ready or Not's Darkest Level. I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, so I guess I am technically getting into this blind, but I am looking forward to it. So if you do enjoy this video, then make sure to support the original one, and of course, give this video a like, comment down below, subscribe and share if you do enjoy my reaction to it. Got it. Okay. Understand.
At this point, it's no secret that Ready or Not is a pretty intense game. In fact, me
That's true.
sitting here and saying that it's just pretty intense is sort of the understatement of the century. There have been several points throughout my playthrough where I've literally had to stop playing the game because its subject matter made me that uncomfortable. Now, I think a big part of that was that never before had I seen a game that talked about school shootings or human trafficking. And Ready or not only covers these topics, but they do so in a way that genuinely hurts you. Now,
I don't know about shooting games, but I'm pretty sure there are other games that do cover human trafficking. Or at the very least, I know it's for certain in, like, let's say, anime or dramas or series that cover similar things. Like they don't like explicitly show it, obviously, for certain things, but you can at least see them covering cases that have to do with sort of like, you know, for example, human trafficking or drug abuse and things like that. And I think he is right, though, in that you don't really see many cases on school shootings. Now, I'm not really sure about American TV, but you definitely don't see that abroad or like with Korean or Japanese shows. You don't see that. And I don't think European ones cover it either. Although do let me know if I'm wrong, because I don't really consume enough European to really know. But I do feel like it represents and shows that school shooting is mainly a thing that occurs in America. And I assume perhaps it is shown in American TV, but for those of you who do watch that kind of stuff, do let me know if that is the case, if they do cover it. And if they don't, then perhaps Ready or Not is one of the few that does cover it extensively, or at least sensitively and respectfully, I would assume, when it comes to those topics.
with this, naturally, there comes a lot of unsettling and heartbreaking moments, but none of them can hold a candle to the level that we're discussing today. This mission is the culmination of the game's exploited storyline, and it is, in my opinion, one of the darkest levels in gaming history. I'm talking, of course, about Valley of the Dolls.
Valley of the Dolls.
But before we get into all of that pandemonium, I think that this is the perfect opportunity to introduce you to today's video partner, NordVPN. Do you like security?
Support.
I sure hope you do. Every day that you log online, you're going through a gauntlet of phishing schemes, stolen information, and people trying to take advantage of you on the internet. You might even think you're safe. Little do you know, some shell company in Siberia just set up a dummy store operation and stole your mom's credit card number. Checkmate, gamers. However, with NordVPN, you have a proverbial big brother watching your back. Not only does NordVPN allow you to surf the web with anonymity, but it also monitors any potential threats that might harm you or your computer. You don't even need to connect to a VPN server. Nord's built-in Threat Protection Pro will automatically scan the sites that you visit and block dangerous ones before they can harm you. So if you're interested in keeping you and your data protected, please consider checking out NordVPN today. If you go to nordvpn.com/Isaac, you'll receive the very best offer that they have. And if you find out that you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you guys are interested, be sure to go to nordvpn.com/Isaac to get yourself protected today. And I just want to give a big thank you to NordVPN for partnering with today's video. Let's get back to it. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this lore series, or you're not too familiar with Ready or Not, here's a quick recap of what's happened so far. In some of our earlier missions, we've been investigating an underground cheese pizza ring. It all started when we responded to a call at a popular streamer.
I'm trying to understand what exactly, I know, okay, so I'm on 303. I just need to look at his warning in the beginning a bit better. So see, okay, got that. So I understand the latter one, but I need to understand what the heck that particular word means so that I'm not like super lost when he's referring to that. So just let me look at it. Okay, so it usually means, sorry, I'm sorry that I'm taking a while. Oh, okay, so that's what it means. Okay, now I understand. Thank you for waiting if I was taking a while. Let me go back to it now.
Responded to a call at a popular streamer's house, and while searching the scene, we just so happened to find some illicit material sitting next to his bed. When we checked his PC, we discovered that he'd been downloading this content from a server hosted by a nearby tech company. So naturally, we go and investigate this tech company, and after seizing and analyzing their hard drives, we're led to a child talent agency called Brixley Talent Time. Now, as I mentioned in the last episode, Brixley Talent Time is sketchy as hell. Even from the outside, you can immediately tell that something's not right here. Essentially, this agency lures in desperate parents with promises of turning their kids into the next big Hollywood stars. All the parents have to do is drop their children off, and the agency will supposedly handle the rest. But what's happening behind closed doors is much darker than that. The kids brought here are being exploited and harassed by the owner, George Brixley. Some of these kids are even being drugged to make them easier to control. Brixley's also been taking photos of these children and sending them to a mysterious figure known only as AV. And when this AV sees a child that he likes, he shows up in person and takes them. Now, given this situation, I theorize that some of these parents don't even realize what's going on here. Brixley likely tells them that their kid is going out on an audition or something, and as long as that money keeps rolling in, these parents don't ask questions. And let's be real here, right? The people taking their kids here aren't caring, protective parents. These are people using their children as a quick way to make money, even if it means throwing them straight into danger. Thankfully, though, we're able to track down and arrest George Brixley, but AV, the one who's truly pulling the strings here, is still out there. At least that is until the LSPD Cybercrime Division makes a breakthrough in the case. They're able to trace a series of wire transfers from an offshore bank account linked to a shell company in Romania. And interestingly, that company recently made a payment to someone named Amos Vol. And if you take a look at this man's initials, you'll have found out that he is our mysterious AV. As it turns out, though, Vol is a well-known adult film producer, and he's operating right here in Los Sueños. Our briefing notes that he's been in this industry for decades, and judging just by his mansion, it seems like he's made a fortune doing it. But make no mistake, behind this wealth and reputation, Vol is a predator. He is the AV that has been orchestrating all of this madness. He's been exploiting the vulnerable.
It just goes to show that you can never judge a person by their cover. Because even if they seem like a good person, who knows if they really are a good person. And that's the most, it really makes me super sad to know that the kids in this game had to suffer through all that, especially because their parents aren't, I guess they're putting their children in danger, potential danger, in this case, actual danger and actual trauma, without really thinking it through. Because let's just say that a parent noticed that their child is drugged, then isn't that a time to be questioning things at that point? Like, no matter how much you need money, But at the same time, like if they're the type of person to actually send their child here, then doesn't that mean that they probably don't even care about their kid, about what they might go through? Because it's not like kids know what it's like to be in the entertainment world. But at the very least, any sane adult would actually understand that there is a lot of bad things that go on in the entertainment world. And yet they still sent their kid here just for money. And it just makes me very bitter inside here.
In the most
And the fact that this actually can happen in real life.
It's our job to bring him down. With all of this information in mind, though, we can begin to gear up and make our way towards Vol's mansion. However, as soon as we arrive, it immediately becomes clear that this mission won't be as straightforward as we had hoped. You see, at the time of our raid, Vol just so happens to conveniently be hosting his daughter's 18th birthday party. And because of this, the mansion is packed with guests, many of them being young, uninvolved bystanders. Even though we're targeting some of the worst criminals imaginable, we still need to exercise caution and professionalism here, because no innocent kids deserve to die in the crossfire. Now, as we begin to enter the property, it quickly becomes apparent just how wealthy Vol really is. We can see that he's gifted his daughter a brand new G-Wagon, and
what's worse is that this dude has a daughter and still does that. Oh my gosh, it's so disgusting.
Sign by the gate also reveals that he's hired a private armed security detail to protect his estate 24/7. Now, according to our briefing, this company, Bolton Security, is composed of former police officers and military veterans. And as we'll soon discover, these men are far better equipped and trained than the criminals that we typically encounter in this game. Now, some of you guys might recognize these guards from the Spider mission, and even though they're dressed quite differently there, the earpieces that these men wear are a dead giveaway. Now, this small connection is important because it highlights the depth of corruption shown by this security company. These guards aren't just here to protect Vol's assets, they know exactly what's going on. CCTV footage from our last briefing confirms that some of them have even participated in trafficking children back to Vol's mansion. So make no mistake, these men are totally complicit in what's happening here. Now, as we continue to work our way towards the house, the map gives us a choice. We can either breach the main entrance and work our way down, or we can take the nearby staircase and start from the ground floor instead. Now, personally, I prefer starting at the top since this map is filled with hidden corners and areas worth investigating. But before we move in, there is a disturbing little detail near the staircase that needs mentioning. Here we can find a Polaroid camera and some blank photo film, and a note pinned to the wall that reads, "Selfie contest. Take a picture of your bare feet and put it in the box next to the pool for a chance to win an awesome prize. Contest will be judged by the one and only Mr.
So he's a fit feet person.
So in addition to, running a massive underground cheese pizza ring, Mr. Vol is also trying to manipulate his teenage visitors into taking feet pics for him. Anyways, though, after all of that strangeness, we can proceed back upstairs and make our way through the front door. And as expected, Bolton Security isn't keen on letting us through without a fight. The second that we breach, these men open fire without hesitation. And to me, this reaction sort of says everything. You would think that a typical security force, especially one comprised of former law enforcement officers, would likely surrender upon seeing a SWAT team. But these guards know that they're in some seriously deep shit. And if Vol gets arrested, they're likely going down with him. So instead of complying, they make the desperate and poor decision to fight back. This is not ideal for them. Once we deal with this initial resistance, though, we begin to notice some details around the mansion that paint a clearer picture of Vol's crimes. The first of which is a very suspicious video on the TV in the living room. Now, I don't quite want to just jump the gun yet and say that this video is an adult movie, but we are in the house of a man who produces those for a living. And as we'll come to find out later, there is all sorts of this stuff just littering his house. So operating off of this notion, Amos Vol is showing an adult video of his wife to his guests, which is incredibly strange, but not particularly incriminating. However, if you look at the date shown in the video's title and you cross-reference that with his wife's birth date shown in our briefing, you'll find out that she was actually underage at the time of this filming. So,
oh
to
my
put it
gosh,
bluntly, Amos Vole is showing his guests CP. A bit further down the hall, we can find another chilling
Grooming.
sight in a nearby bathroom. Several hard
Ugh, that's
drives
disgusting.
submerged in a bathtub, likely an attempt to destroy evidence. It seems that word of our arrival must have reached Vole just in time for him to try and cover some of his tracks. Working our way past this though, we'll find ourselves in Vole's bedroom, and here we can see that the walls are decorated with posters advertising his so-called films, featuring titles like Backdoor Babes 2 and Pole Patrol. We can also find some cameras set up by the bed, industrial photography lights, and various other pieces of film equipment scattered around. It would seem that this is the bedroom where he does most of his filming. Interestingly, we can also see some homemade adult DVDs lying in cases on the floor nearby. But after we take a closer look at them, this small detail becomes much more sinister. Many of the cases have the performer's age written on them, and the majority of these seem to be of people under 18. One case even has question marks on it instead of a number, suggesting that even Vole himself wasn't sure how young one of his victims was. There's also a case labeled Spider's Girls, which is a small detail, but one that hints at a much larger, darker operation. Continuing
Oh,
onward, though, we
boy.
can eventually find Danielle, Amos's wife, down the hall. However, at least during my playthroughs, she never really had anything much to say during this. So for now, we can continue to move on. If we continue our path along the hallway, we'll also find a guest room, an at-home gym, and some very questionable art and sculptures. But the only real thing of note here is a small package and note from Daniela, which reads, quote, "To my Bolton box. Take to post and send today." And if we look at this package, we can see that it's being sent to Romania. Now, it's hard to say whether this package is involved in all of these crimes or not, because Danielle herself is from Romania, so she very well could be sending something back to her family. But as we've learned through our briefing, that shell corporation that the Voles are running is also based in Romania, so this
that
could be tied
means-
to that. But regardless,
Yeah.
this small detail does give us a bit to think about here. Moving past this though, we can begin to make our way downstairs. And here is probably the first spot in this level where we'll really need to be careful. The staircase itself is flanked by this massive window, completely exposing us to everyone outside. So if an enemy sees you before you see them here, you're sort of screwed. If we're able to get past this hurdle though, we'll make our way into another open room. And here we can find a couple of extra things worth mentioning. The first thing is the couch, where we can find some underwear and condoms sitting right out in the open. Not too far from this, we can find a sculpture, which seems to show a figure curled in a fetal position. And if we look at this just a bit closer, we'll find that this piece of art is titled, quote, "I just want to fuck, whether you like it or not."
That's
And the artist
horrible.
of this piece is none other than Daniela Vole. Now, to me, this small detail is really interesting because this piece and title seem to suggest that this is depicting a rape victim. The sculpture seems to be deeply personal, possibly a reflection of Danielle's own trauma. And if we piece everything together that we've learned thus far, this would suggest that she wasn't just a victim of abuse when she was younger, but that she still continues to suffer even into her adulthood. And this art might be the only way she's able to express her pain. Now, it is worth mentioning that only a few of these sculptures have title plates, and out of those, this is the only one by Daniela Vole. So I feel like this was a really intentional move on the part of the developers. Moving away from this though, we'll eventually come across a small sort of bridge that takes us into a different section of the house. And this right here is yet another
place is so
dangerous
huge.
portion of the map. Because again, we're visible to just about everyone in the room here, and we don't really have any cover to protect us. So we really need to be careful navigating this section. Across from this bridge though, we're able to find Janie's room, Vole's daughter. And on her door is a note telling her dad to keep the guards away from her room, saying, quote, "You're not the only one who knows how to use a camera." This line seems to suggest that Janie has at least a faint idea that her dad is involved in some pretty bad stuff. However, the extent of all of it is likely lost on her. She probably knows that he's an adult film producer and that he frequently uses drugs, but I would imagine that she isn't aware of all of the other stuff that he's wrapped up in. Making our way inside of her room, you'll find the surroundings
hope that's
of
the
a typical
case.
high school girl. Band posters, books, and photos can be found all over the room. Funnily enough, on some of these photos, you can see where she's actually gone in and crossed out the face of her dad with like a Sharpie. And honestly,
I'm glad that she doesn't like her dad, to be honest. It sucks that she has to find out this way that her dad did some really bad stuff. But at least even before she knows and finds out, she never liked her dad.
at this point, you can't really blame her. Also in this room, we can find a note from Janie's mom, which wishes her a happy birthday. We can also find a laptop where we can see that Janie is already trying to sell that car that her dad bought. From everything that we've seen so far, it would seem that these two really don't get along. And all signs in this room seem to indicate that Janie is looking for the quickest opportunity to get the hell away from this place. And honestly, good for her.
Yeah,
Anyways, though,
seriously.
if we move our way back down this hallway, we can find a bar, a common area, as well as Amos Vol's office. We can find a note outside of his door warning visitors to stay away, stating that if he catches someone in there, he'll have to teach them a lesson. And when we make our way inside, we can see why. On his desk, we'll find even more details that seem to indicate that Vol is destroying evidence. We can find multiple hard drives sitting around, as well as a laptop and a PC, both displaying error screens. And next to all of this, we can see an industrial fishing magnet. And you know, if that wasn't enough for you, we can literally find a jerry can and a box of smoldering evidence sitting on the balcony outside. So if you weren't convinced before, it should be plain to see now that Amos Vol is actively trying to destroy evidence of his crimes, which makes it all the more important that we track him down and apprehend him quickly. Working our way down the balcony stairs,
hurry
we'll
up
find
and get
ourselves
him.
outside next to Vol's garden, but there really isn't a whole lot worth mentioning here. So for now, we'll work our way back inside and look around a bit more. Back inside on the bottom floor of the mansion, we can find more of the same. Bottles of opened alcohol, guards patrolling the halls, and guests fleeing and trying to take cover. But there are two small details here that stand out. The first is a small theater on the northeastern side of the mansion, and inside it we can watch as an X-rated movie plays on the TV. And judging by what's been left behind on some of the seats here, it's clear that multiple people were watching at the same time, which is just unsettling. Just outside
that is
of this
very
theater,
unsettling.
Though, we can find a kitchen with a dining table that's covered in paychecks for the security detail. And if we look at these a bit closer, we can see that one of them's written out for $15,000. Now, I don't know if every guard is making this much money, but seeing all of these checks sit here really puts into perspective just how wealthy and powerful Amos Vol really is. Regardless though, after finding this, we've essentially cleared the entire house. So now it's time to make our way back outside and into the party. Now, out here we'll see lounge areas that have been set up for guests, a rented stage with a DJ, and even a bar. But it's there that we'll find yet another unsettling sign that's been left by Vol. Quote, "Kids, if you're under 21, we can't serve you drinks legally." Legally. Love, Amos. Now, this note implies that Vol doesn't care if the kids drink so long as they know that he's the one permitting them to do so. It's very strange. Further along, though, we'll pass the pool, a table filled with...
That guy is, very disgusting. You can kind of tell that he's, like, trying to act like he's young, you know, by making it seem like he's a fun person. But then at the same time, you can also see that he's trying to imprint into their minds that he's worthy of being trusted and that he's like them on their level. Probably because he thinks they're to his taste, maybe. Ugh, disgusting. But either way, I'm really glad that at least his daughter knows or is aware of how disgusting or horrible a person he is. I mean, not to the extent of his crimes, but like on a personal, like personality level, like she probably is aware that he's a messed up person.
Presence, as well as the results of that selfie contest that we saw earlier. And apparently, plenty of guests were totally on board with this idea because there are a lot of foot pictures proudly being displayed here. I don't know what to say, man. If my friend's dad held a contest where teenagers took pictures of their feet, I wouldn't be participating. I would be calling the fucking police. But for whatever reason here, no one seems the least bit disturbed. In fact,
because they're probably not thinking about it
that we've been in, it's clear that most of the guests have been actively participating in everything going on here. And for lack of a
I think what disturbs me more is the fact that they're okay with him showing such inappropriate things at a party. Like, it's one thing to drink and it's one thing to do drugs. I mean, that's not good either, but like to watch that kind of stuff, I feel like that's just very immoral.
better term, this teenage girl's birthday party has essentially turned into a Diddy party. But even after seeing all of this, we still don't fully grasp what's happening here. We know that Amos Vole is running a massive CP ring, but aside from a few tape cases upstairs, we haven't really found definitive proof. But that's about to change. Next to the pool, we can find a staircase leading down into what looks like an old maintenance area beneath the house. Now, at first, there's not really anything unusual here, just some storage boxes and water pumps. But then we start noticing some things that don't belong. A chalk-drawn hopscotch grid on the floor, a small toy tucked away in the corner, and then we open the next door and we find this. This is Amos Vole's dark room, the place where he processes his photographs of underage children. This scene is absolutely sickening, but the worst part comes when we step into the next room and we find this. A shrine dedicated to Vole's own daughter. The messages scribbled on the walls make it clear that she is his next victim. And at this point, it's hard to even process what we're looking at here. We can find—
That's so disgusting. He was gonna go after his daughter? Thank goodness she's gonna leave. She's in danger at that point. Oh, horrible.
Find a rolled up mattress in the corner with one of Vole's shirts draped over it, suggesting that he's been living down here. Now, experiencing all of this at once is absolutely fucking crazy. And as I was trying to process all of this on my playthrough, I made the fatal mistake of walking back out towards the dark room. And on my way out the door, I noticed a bookcase at the far side of the room. From a distance, it was filled with what had appeared to be white books. But once I got a bit closer, my stomach dropped. These aren't books, they're DVD cases.
Yeah, they're DVD cases.
Each labeled with a name and a number, which
and
based on the cases
age
shown upstairs, likely represents the ages of children. And there are thousands of them. This isn't just an operation, it's a massive archive. If there was ever any doubt about what's been happening here, it should be
that's
gone.
disgusting.
But even then, we're still not done here. In the next room, we can find a small film set, a camera and lighting setup, all focused on a crib. And at this point, we don't even want to think about what that means. So we move forward. And it's here, in this last room, that we find something that completely redefines the horror of this entire situation. The floor here has been dug up. Concrete rubble is scattered everywhere, and in the hole, we can see several barrels. And at first, it doesn't quite register. Why would a millionaire predator be digging up his own basement just to bury some barrels? But then we look around the room, and we find toys and children's clothes. And then the final detail, the thing that makes everything click. We find flies hovering above the barrels. These are the remains of the children Vole photographs. Vole had been receiving children from George Brixley's talent agency. He would lure them in with his mansion, promising them stardom and convincing them that he was a legitimate producer. Then he would bring them down here to assault, film, and dispose of. The bodies of these children barreled and buried beneath beneath his own house. These kids' parents never really know what happened to them. Their child just becomes another statistic, just another missing kid in Los Sueños. This reveal is without a doubt one of the most sickening moments that I've ever experienced in a game. Something fairly common I get in my comment sections is stuff along the lines of, Ready or Not is scary and spooky, but it's got nothing on Spec Ops: The Line or No Russian from Modern Warfare 2. But as someone who's played through both of those moments, neither of them has made me physically recoil the way that Valley of the Dolls did. In my eyes, this is one of the most brilliantly executed gut punches that I've ever seen in a game. And what I think makes it so effective.
This is one of the things I mentioned in the previous videos, is that games has a way to have empathy for the people that you might not have actually been in their shoes before. And this is a good way to showcase it. It literally makes you feel nauseous going through this mission. I mean, just hearing it myself makes me feel so horrible inside. But at the same time, you become angry on behalf of the children. You empathize with the loss of their life, with the things that they had to go through. And it's a painful thing because you might not think about it on a daily basis, but the situation depicted here is actually a reality to another person. And the fact that it is a reality to another person is the most tragic thing. And for some, they can't break out of the cycle because they're either dead or, fully traumatized and forever in the cycle, or they just somehow break free due to chance and opportunities. But that's a very rare thing, especially if they're kids. It's a very terrifying realization that people who are supposed to be parents are the ones doing this kind of damage. And not only that, they were going to target their own children. That's the most horrifying thing. The parents are supposed to be the ones that protect the kids, but the parents are the ones doing the damage. And this is why a lot of kids are traumatized, because they don't get protected enough by those parents. But sometimes the protection can turn into something more violent and terrifying and terrible too. Perhaps not in the same way that's depicted here, but in a different way. Honestly, parenting is very hard, but as long as you are respectful and try to understand your child, I think that's good enough. But if you're going into things like this, you shouldn't even have had a child. I feel so bad for that child. I hope that child escapes, is all I can hope for. It's not like I can help them. Most we can do is report and try to help when they ask, but it's things like this that makes you realize how powerless you are. If so many rich people, so many powerful people are doing this, then how are you supposed to fight? We can empathize, we can try, but we can't help everyone, unfortunately. And so all we can do is try to understand and look out for any signs in order to help the best that you can. It's so heartbreaking to see it in a case like this.
Is that it never really overtly shocks you. It's just details. From a distance, this is just a regular darkroom until you look a bit closer. This is just a sculpture until you learn the character's history. And these are just barrels until you fully understand the context of what's going on here. Ready or Not doesn't show you horror, it lets you discover it. And each revelation hits like a freight train. But the most messed up.
And the thing that I do want to point out is the fact that even in reality, it's not like you get jump scares most of the time. It's you don't realize it, but then the closer you look, the more disturbing it gets. And then the moment you reach that level of, I guess, disturb, I guess, what's the best way to put it? Once you reach a point where you are disturbed at the highest level, I guess, then that's when you are very terrified. And by then it's like fully seeped into you to the point that it's hard for you to just brush off, because it's instilled into your brain that this is horrible, this is horrifying, this should not happen. And yet it is happening, and that's the reality. In some places, to some people, this is reality. And we don't like to face it, we don't want to admit it, but it is reality. And this is showing that it is possible that people who are rich, people who are powerful, people who might not even be rich, or at least don't seem to be rich, can do things like this. And may have jobs that are apparently, righteous or whatever. They can still do something wrong, and do something extremely wrong, like to this level. And that's the terrifying notion that you get as you play these kinds of games and experience the case as it is.
A part of it all, the entire game is like this. If you can somehow resist the urge of putting a hole the size of Montana in the back of Vol's head, you can go back to the evidence locker at the police station, and there you'll find a painting and a group of masked figures huddled around some children. And on the back of it, there's a note. As it turns out, this painting was a gift from other predators, thanking Vol for his contributions to their community. Just when you think you've won or done something here, the game reminds you that Vol was just one piece of a much larger and darker puzzle. There are more people just like him. More Brixleys, more networks, more children who were taken and never seen again. And that's what makes Ready or Not feel so uniquely disturbing to me. It doesn't just want you to feel disgusted, it wants you to feel helpless. Because in the end, there's no real victory to be had here. You got one of the bad guys, but there are thousands more of them out there. And for a game to leave you with that, instead of just some false, cheery ending, is really powerful to me. Later in the series, we'll be examining this potential network further. But for now, we've come to the end of the storyline. I would really like to hear what your thoughts on this level were, though. Do you think that there's a game more disturbing than this? If so, please be sure to let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you really enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel or joining my Discord server. I'm really trying to build a community that talks about lore and all sorts of other cool stuff, so it would really mean a lot to me if you guys could go and join me on there. Right now, we only have a couple of active members, but I'm really trying to make that server a home for my channel, so it would mean the world to me if you took the time. I'll have a link down in the description below. Just go and join it, introduce yourself, post some shitty memes, do whatever you want to do. Finally, though, I just want to give another big thank you to NordVPN for
Okay, so he already did that before, so I'm not gonna play it again at the end. But this case, I do remember a lot of people commenting on it in the first video. And technically, by the time this video releases, the second video would have already released, and maybe the third one too. But at the time of this recording, only the first video has been released, at least my reaction to the first video. And I didn't really understand. Like, I knew about the Valley of the Dolls from what you guys told me in the comments, but it didn't like fully process in my head on how bad it's going to be depicted. Mostly because you guys kind of gave me hints that it's bad, but like, obviously I didn't understand the full extent until I watched it. Other than that, this video was a great video as always. I'm looking forward to the next one. I would have to say this is probably the darkest for me personally, mostly because you don't really see that kind of stuff. Actually, no, that's not true. I've seen other shows that do depict this kind of stuff too. and those always disturb me, and this one disturbed me too. But I do look forward to the other videos, and if you enjoyed this, then make sure to support the original video, and if you enjoyed my reaction to it, then be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!